Hello, everyone. Welcome to LOA Uncorked. This is Holly.
And this is Gina.
Oh, Gina.
I know.
Okay. We're so excited.
I know. We literally talked last night at 11:30 and
in anticipation.
Stop talking about
Went to
this
her
conversation
website.
today. Yep. Yeah. It's great.
We've been doing that for weeks now. We're excited about it. Now, Gina, here's the thing about our cool guest, Daniela Hofmann.
Okay.
She spent only...
Do you know this for a fact, or you just making this up?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Listen.
We'll fact check it shortly.
Okay, you can fact check this, Gina, and you know HR math.
I
can do the math.
Yes, I'm good at fact checking too. Yes. Okay.
No lies here.
Yeah.
No lies here.
No lies.
I'm getting worried about that fact.
There's a no lie zone.
Super true. Okay, so Daniela only spent 10 years in finance.
Oh, God.
Before she
Daniela.
left.
Oh.
I spent 30.
Yeah.
That's where you need to do the math. And then I finally left. We are soul sisters, Daniela.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry, Daniela. Yeah.
I know, 30 years. Okay, so let me...
Wow.
So what you're saying is she's a
smarter,
learner.
better version
Okay, all right.
of anything I ever thought of. That's what I'm telling you. So I can't wait to hear from her today.
Okay.
So she did spend her first decade as a finance professional. I know all about that, Daniela. Okay. In the corporate world, we know about that. Former execs in the corporate world. Feeling restless and increasingly unfulfilled. I understand that too. She embarked on an entrepreneurial journey in 2017. I love that. I want to know what her sign is. Okay. We'll ask you soon. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So
I like that you're giving her like little hints.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So for Daniela, work has always been a form of creative expression. Now, I think that's funny for an accountant, but some accountants are creative.
Very. Yeah.
With the potential to positively impact our communities and our society at large. I love that. So not long after leaving her employment, she started to notice how difficult it is to find time and space for work that really matters. Okay, like I'm starting to sweat, Daniela, because I left my corporate gig at the end of the year, and guess what? The days fly by. Okay. I mean, like, what did I do today? Was it Ted Lasso?
10 hours before? Yeah.
Was it Ted Lasso or was it YouTube? What got me?
I don't know.
And so I'm not sure. Okay. So she noticed that. I noticed that. And so she created something called the Cabin. We're going to dive into that. And I think there's a cabin club, and it's an online co-working space that combines mindfulness, Gina, with focused work.
I love it.
I do love that. And it was born out of struggle. Most things are. I'm hoping she can help me today. I mean, this is therapy 101.
You need to go to the cabin.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm running. Today, the cabin supports changemakers. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a change maker yet, Gina. To focus on doing work that matters and creating, I love this, a healthy relationship to work. And this speaks really deeply to us. We talk about the corporate world and how do we make our work time a beautiful, healthy, functional, life fulfilling,
authentic.
Yes, and I think Daniela's found the secret. So welcome, Daniela Hofmann, to LOA Uncorked.
Yay!
Yay! Round of applause.
Daniela, we're so excited you're here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is, what an intro. And then you always think, oh my God, what did I actually write in this?
Right. No, it's true.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, she looks for any opportunity to be everyone's best friend. And
this was easy to find.
She uses that finance connection often. Early and
not
often.
as often as I should, really.
Yeah,
Most finance professionals just go. Okay. No, I'm kidding. We have to have somebody count the numbers.
Yeah.
And I like numbers.
No, I do. Yeah. Very good at it.
And I think that wasn't necessarily the problem. I think
exactly.
it was more the setting, the environment.
For sure.
Okay.
We talk a lot about that.
I'm excited for this conversation, Gina.
For sure. Timely. It's timely. So, Daniela, typically we start our podcast and ask you to share a little bit beyond the information that Holly shared, a little bit about yourself, your journey, kind of where you're at today, what brought you there, kind of the highlights of Daniela. And then I think that's a good foundation for the rest of our conversation.
Right. Okay. See, that's the point where I'm like, I think I should have prepared this.
No.
So it's like,
No, there's no preparation needed. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like, and this is so interesting, I'm going to start with the end, or with
I love
right
that.
now.
Love that.
Because I really feel like I'm in this deep process of becoming, like it's like a full circle. And a full circle end, and the end is starting now, because so I grew up in a tiny village in Germany in the middle of nowhere, 150 people, know everyone by name, and all I wanted as a child growing up, I mean, you know, it's literally picture perfect, it's beautiful, but all I wanted growing up was to escape this. I wanted to go to the big city, and I just wanted to escape the reality that I was in. But I also so desperately wanted to be someone else, because the person that I was, I just didn't really like. And so, like, I think I spent my teenage years, which I don't have much memory of, and like really just trying to picture the future, always live in the future, always like, okay, what am I going to do after school? And from there, I went to England after I left school, and I never came back. So it's never, I did come back to the village, but that's a little other story. But I went to England, I went to uni there, I then moved to London, spent 11 years in London, and lived that life that I always ever dreamt of. I joined a finance graduate scheme, you know, it did like everything that society perceives as, you know, that's the thing you've got to do, you've got to strive, you've got to, and I had a lot of masculine energy in me. And I was influenced in those years a lot by like people who are, you know, the Tim Ferrisses of this world, who are like having that, and you know, I love him, and he introduced me to a lot of things in my life, and I wouldn't knock him for that at all, but it was very masculine, and that's like, that shaped those years of like corporate environment. And but I noticed very quickly this voice inside of me that said, this isn't this, you don't belong here. And you know, at the same time, we're still trying to find out who I am, or trying to find that person. So a long story cut short, I tried many things within this finance profession. I worked for charity. That didn't seem to work, because it's kind of the same things done, but in a charity setting.
Right.
I worked for a startup for many years, and really to finally admit to myself, the only thing that makes sense is to leave it all behind and start something totally different. And so whilst everyone else was like saving for a mortgage, I was saving so I could escape. And I did escaped in 2017 and entered this world of self-employment that I was so not prepared for. Spend all my savings like in less than a year, still living in London, still living quite an kind of expensive rents and stuff like that. And I noticed this other yearning in me where it's like, I don't want to, like, everything is so, everything is so fast living. Everything, nothing has really substance. I felt, for me, I didn't feel rooted, and so that that kind of was combined, like me not really feeling like I belong here, and then I was trying to find my feet in this new world of work. And so I tried many, many different things. I started 2 companies with a friend, did lots of like little jobs, even like bartended, because I never bartended I had a bartending job when I was a student, but that was sort of the first time in my early 30s. But because I was convinced, like, whatever it takes, I don't want to go back to my old life. I don't want to go back to the corporate world anymore. I want to have control over my time and what I'm doing. But I noticed in that time as well that and so many things that I was doing, like I don't know how to build a structure. I don't know how to, what am I doing? Like I started so many things, stopped so many things, and I spend a lot of time on social media. So, and I think there was a point where I just said, and the pandemic had just started, I actually left London, decided to leave, and wanted to travel, wanted to go to different European countries. But then COVID came along, and I ended up in my tiny little village in the middle of nowhere, back with my parents. And that was such an interesting experience, because when do you ever have the opportunity again to spend so much time with your parents? And it was a real, obviously, big reckoning for me, and connecting to my roots again, and connecting to who I truly am and what I truly want in life. And I really realized that the big city, that was me trying to be someone else. But what I want is, I want to live in the middle of nowhere in a little cabin. Really.
God, I love that.
And so that those 2 years was super important for me. Had the opportunity to spend lots of time with my grandmother, which was very important. And I had the opportunity to start to work on things that mattered to me. And the cabin was like that vehicle. So, and that's kind of it. I met an awesome man in that time, just before the pandemic, and now we live in the French Alps, and life is beautiful.
Wow.
I love that. Okay, that story just makes me smile, because, as a young child, I kind of wanted to escape too. And you said that twice. It was like, I wanted to escape the village, and then I wanted to escape my, and so it sounds, your corporate life. And so it sounds like you sort of found yourself then through these escapes.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. But it was really interesting that the first part, which is, I think, my UK and London life, was very much about, I don't like who I am. Let me adopt the persona that fits with society, with other people. I'm liked, and that's great. But then really, when you grow up and start doing like this deep work on yourself, you realize, well, but what am I doing here? And it really forces you to look again, and then escape that life that you've built, that was kind of built on a lie.
So when you say when you say you didn't like yourself, like, what was it? Because you didn't feel relevant enough or exciting enough? Like, what didn't you care about that you thought this escape to England and this different persona of yourself would solve?
Well, moving to a different, growing up, I didn't always have the best relationship with my parents, and it was almost like leaving that world behind. I could start, no one knows me. I could literally be someone else, and I was, as a completely different person. And I think that was probably the biggest thing. I needed to escape my parents, I think that was probably the biggest.
Get that.
I think it's interesting that you were able to, because I wasn't able to do this, like you were able to still be in touch with how you feel. So one of the things Gina and I always talk about is like, you talk about disconnecting your head from your body so you wouldn't know what's going on. And I suppressed my memory and my feelings. So then I would have to ask Gina, well, am I mad? I have no idea. Like, should I be mad? You know, like, how do I feel, Gina? You tell me, which is messed up, right? You know? And so I love that you were continually looking for who Daniela is. And I'll tell you, like, because we're different generations. When I started in the finance world, it's interesting you said how masculine it is, because her and I are talking about, like, I grew up with all men. I was the only woman in the room most of the time. And I'm fine with men, but I was very alone. I'd go to these conferences and I'd be like, okay, I'd go to the bathroom and give myself a pep talk, because it's a sea of suits and men. And then you have me. And so who's the fraud? You know, there was always, and then you had to be masculine. So there was all of this going on. And then, of course, I had kids, and then I'm stuck. These kids in a marriage, and then I'm stuck. And then, you know, time rolls and you don't look at how you feel. So I love that you continue to say, this doesn't work for me. You ended up in England, in the big city, and then you said, okay, this corporation doesn't work for me. And then you tried nonprofit, and I laughed, because I'm like, okay, well, that's just a mini corporation not making money. Okay, it's break even. All right. So, but same stuff.
For an accountant, that would be hard to take.
It's the same stuff, you know, with less pay usually.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because I looked at that world too, and, you know, so when you birthed the cabin, was that during the pandemic, when you were in the village at your parents' house?
It was.
I love this.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Pretty much.
I love it.
And so tell us about what the cabin is. And I mean, Nina has talked about how wonderful it is. She's gone through it.
Nina, our dream weaver.
Oh, yeah. We love her. We love you, Nina. Okay. She's talked about what a beautiful experience it was. And so tell us what it is. And I know you've got something coming up in November, but I think you have a club. And so tell us what that is all about. It's exciting.
Okay. So I think, well, it was kind of pre-pandemic still. Was it already? In those months, you know, it's a blur.
Listen, none of us can remember what happened. Right. No, the last 2 years is like almost 3 years now, like a little abyss of time. Yes. Yeah.
But in that time, it was me like leaving England. And then I think stepped off. I think I saw the Social Network, that film. But no, was it called Social Network?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. The one about Facebook?
No, not that one. Anyway,
no, it's
I saw
be
a film around. I think the effects of social media.
Okay, that might be it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that film or a documentary, and I was really like kind of looking or reflecting on me and what I do and how I spend my days, and what really on the impact it had on me. And I think that was the first time where I remember saying to my partner, okay, I'm going off anything social. No Instagram, no Facebook, I'm deleting everything. And I did. And then I lived with it for 6 months, even longer, like literally off everything. And in that time, I had all of a sudden a lot of time. And I just thought, wow, you know, how could I now best use this time? And this idea of the cabinet already, or the idea of something of like focused work, the work of Cal Newport, like all of this was already brewing in me. And then I joined a co-working session, an online co-working session, and it was an American company. And I just loved it. I fell in love with the concept of like people working in a room together, but they're all working on their own stuff. And you set an intention before, say what you're going to work on, and then you either do it or don't do it. But most people just do it because you have your screen on what you're going to do. You're going to walk away from it. You probably won't. You sit down and do it. And I was just fascinated in half an hour how much I got done. And I thought, that is brilliant, that's amazing. But again, I felt like it was run by a man. I felt again like this is just, I don't want to make my work about getting shit done. That's not what I want. I like, this is so, reminded me so much of my old world. And so I thought, you know, I had already trained as a mindfulness teacher, and I thought, why not bring this together? And so I did, and I thought about this idea for a very long time, and then finally shared it with an amazing business coach, and she said, why don't you do it? You seem so lit up about it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And that was a few months later, and I had this like strong element of, there's always like a visualization, it's always centered around a cabin. So you're almost like going to a place in your mind, in your imagination, and from that place you're doing the thing that in that moment really matters to you. And I think it just changes how you look at work, because it no longer becomes it's no longer this transactional thing, but it's like you've set an intention, you've had like a, you know, you moved, you had a meditation beforehand. It matters. It mattered, just not just the work matters, but like this time matters.
Right.
And yeah, it's like, it was this tiny idea, and I shared it with a few people, and they really enjoyed it. And I thought, okay, let me keep this going. And I have done this now for a year and a half almost.
Oh, I love that. Well, Holly and I worked together for 18 years in corporate, and it really does make a difference to work with people who, from a life philosophy and way of being in the world, are similar. And so what you've created is a community where there's a prioritization of the whole self and mindfulness, and the way you're doing what you do in the world, that no doubt makes, I know what it meant for me, having Holly as a refuge in an organization that, generally speaking, is not wired like that at all. And I feel like that brought out my best work, to be with and around someone who would encourage, that mindfulness, would encourage the whole self, would encourage me to be me, and to not adjust who I am to fit a corporate model that absolutely is more masculine, for sure. So I love it. I love that you've saw a need to create a platform for people to do that, because they're going to do their best work when they're showing up authentically and whole, and surrounded by people and supported by people that are similar and do their work similar. I love that.
I totally agree, Gina. And I think what Daniela has brilliantly done is married the masculine, which is the action of doing the work, with the feminine, which is the nurturing, and that goes along during the day of work. And so it's really an integration. You shouldn't have one without the other. And if you can balance it, that's when the magic happens. I think that's where your magic is happening.
This is so beautifully said. So beautifully said. Like, I think I've never really put the two together in that way, but it's so very true.
Yeah, because I want to go back to what you said, and this is why I know that when you said it's not about getting shit done, or I don't know how you put that, but I know that everybody gets shit done. Okay, while they're in the cabin. Okay, because Nita told me
they get more shit done.
They get more shit done.
Yeah.
Because the magic happened with the balance of the masculine and the feminine. So everything is taken into account. And then to your point, Gina, that you have that supportive environment, that's beautiful. Most times we weren't working on projects together most days. Sometimes we did, but we were still that support system. But we didn't have this curated, beautiful space that Daniela, you hold for people and guide people through in an integrated fashion. That's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So when you were in England, because I want to stay on the masculine feminine for a moment.
It's a big theme in my life, so yeah.
Yeah, no,
Mine too.
It
See, we're soul sisters, Gina. I'm just finding more stuff.
I know.
Pretty soon I'm going to run over to the French Alps
I
and
know. I was
hang
gonna
out
say,
and
you know,
have some tea.
I'll start the paperwork for the
Stalking.
stalking.
It would take me a little while longer to get over there, but
but you're gonna climb every mountain to get to her, just like
I
just
can't.
like Sound of Music, your favorite movie.
I hate that movie, that musical.
I think it wasn't the French Alps, but you know, it just kind of
Whatever.
I think of mountains.
Okay, Gina, move on.
So the mask when you were in England, were you aware how masculine of a life and a system you were a part of?
Probably not. No, I don't.
Right.
I do not think I had that awareness. I really didn't.
When did
I
that
was-
come to you? When you stepped out? Was it like clearer to you? I'm curious because that level of awareness, I don't think I ever thought of it like that.
Me either. That's why I'd like to, if there's something we can impart our audience, the level of awareness. I always start the day, well, I'm trying to now, saying, universe, God, whoever, show me the truth. Don't hide it from me, even if it's not comfortable. Because I feel like I lived most of my life without that awareness that you're talking about, Daniela.
Yeah.
And so other than my mantra, is there any other things that you do to keep yourself honest with yourself? I
Yeah.
mean, because somebody else's path, they may be fine with being in finance and being in corporate, and that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe it's just an adjustment, but how do we feel, into our awareness of what really is going on?
Right.
And I think you've done a masterful job
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is such a good question. I think, I guess everyone's so totally different, on their journeys. But I think I always had something, I felt something in my body that it's not right what I'm doing. It's for now. I'm doing it for now. I'm doing it to survive. I'm doing it to fit in, but it's not me. And I'm sure you've had this before when you're in a situation and you just realize, God, what am I doing here? This isn't right. And I had this often, very, very often. And sometimes I also did not know how to escape, I think, or what do I do with this information? And how do I change it? I was so focused on being a good girl and being a people pleaser and being liked by others in this newfound persona that I've created. I think for me, it was always pain, really. Pain that then drove me to look deeper and to see the things that needed to be looked at. And I think maybe my first therapy experience, that was in 2013, was maybe that first point, but it was very, very much sit in a chair and talk, that which does not work for me these days, but it was kind of the gateway into it. And then for me, always it's like reading and reading something and thinking that could work. I was mentioning Tim Ferriss before, and that worked a lot, but I hadn't looked under what's driving that need for being better, being more, and so it was like, okay, that feels right, that feels better, but there's something still missing. And at that time I had the first of interactions with meditation, and that introduced me to a whole different world in it. And then I just had different, I think, experiences like that, immersions, retreats. And I just felt, okay, I'm getting closer to it. And I think it was just, this is it. It's a journey. It's not one, you do one thing and it changes everything. For me, it wasn't that. It was like the little things. And now I see more and I'm aware of more. But I wasn't that person, or I was seeing half of that a decade ago. or even less. And maybe in another decade, I see even more. I think with the feminine again, to come back to that, when I left the corporate world, in those months after, I really had like, oh my God, I'm just surrounded by men, and I miss women, and not just even the feminine, but I miss women. I don't have any women in my life, and that was when I went on a retreat with just women, and I'm like, wow, and that really opened the door to so much. And since then, I've just been doing lots of work with women and looking at these different energies and these different aspects of me. And yes, I was very driven, and I guess to many extents I am still driven by this masculine doing, but the feminine wants to come through so much.
I love that. So, I mean, I feel like the invitation for the audience is to know you're on a journey and to sit with the pain, because you said pain was usually your inspiration. So instead of watching, I mean, there's only 2 seasons of Ted Lasso. I don't know.
I know.
Okay,
but speed it up. The 3rd's coming.
But How I Met Your Mother has a bunch of them. Okay, so that you could just do it on repeat over and over again. No, or too many bubbles, whatever. Okay, like whatever the addiction is. So to not check out, I guess, with the social media. I mean, all the things that you were talking about, and check in with yourself.
Yeah, I was actually, just as you were talking, and I hadn't really thought about it like this before, but I think for myself, this resonates. I think of masculine energy being a correlation with the grind of churn of stuff to do, the to-do list, the things, be busy, moving, productive, contribute to society, do. And then I'm wondering if you found a correlation with finding your feminine in more quiet time. Is it a correlation of busyness and availability of time that really brings out a more masculine, when you're busy, more feminine when you're quiet? Did you see a correlation with time and busyness at all?
Well, that's such an interesting question, because I think for me, I realized as well in those last sort of year and a half that actually, like as I said before, work has been an important part of my life, and I want to contribute to society and I want to do meaningful stuff, but in many ways, work has covered up a lot of things for me. Like work has become was my addiction, and once I realized that there is potentially an unhealthy behavior there of just doing too much, of just doing things for the sake of doing things, that once you stop that, like what else is there? Like you've got to, it allows something something in that wasn't there before, because we were so busy doing something, and now you all of a sudden have that time, and you invite in different things that are always there. They're always present. And then when you ask friends of mine, they probably always say I'm a very kind and nurturing person, but that is so covered up by my need for doing. Through that doing, I get validation and all the good things, but that was also an important point in this last year and a half of just looking at what is work for me, and how am I using it or abusing it, and what does it stop me from experiencing? And
That's
not
a mic
easy.
drop.
It's not easy.
That's a mic drop moment.
Yeah,
though,
I
really.
agree.
Work was my addiction. I mean, I think so many people, myself included, can understand that. So in the cabin, you have created a healthy relationship to work. And what does that look like? So we probably already talked a little bit about that, but in your mind, like what would I expect?
What are the principles of healthy work? Like what's that structure
I'm
look
going
like?
to the cabin. I'm going to get healthy with my work. I'm still getting shit done because Nina says she got stuff done. So, so what is that healthy relationship?
It's my definition of healthy relationship, you know. And again, this is, and in the cabin really is a space to invite people to look for what is their version of healthy or sustainable, really. And for me,
that's a great word, actually. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
For me, it's that. It's not just the masculine drive, but it's also that feminine energy of creativity, of dropping deeper, setting an intention for what you're about to do. Even if it's just sitting with an idea, without like having to do, and tick that thing off the list. It's a realization. I think that two things are coming to me right now. It's the realization that we can't work for 8 hours a day. I mean, I don't know. I know where that came from, but we aren't like most of us, or many of us these days, are not working in a factory, having like a shift of 8 hours with some breaks in between. We are many are knowledge workers, and you can't. This is impossible for your brain to be productive for 8 hours. Like it's so. Doing deep work, really like deep stuff, sitting with something with no distractions, with just trying to get into flow with the task at hand, not switching 1,000 times, not looking at your emails or text messages, and doing that for 3 to 4 hours a day, that's enough. And actually, you can't do more than that. And I think we are all always trying to, you know, you hear from people, and I know myself, I used to work like 10, 12-hour days. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it's not sustainable. It's super unhealthy, and so it's that. And I think the other big realization that's coming to me more and more is to like realize that we are finite beings in this sea of endless possibilities and tasks to do. So we've got to prioritize and focus on the stuff that matters. And we just knowing that we'll never get it all done. Like, I think this is, like, you just won't get it all done. So just stop trying.
Yeah.
And focus on the thing, like, find out for yourself, what is it that makes me happy, fulfilled? Like, what is that? And don't sweat the small stuff. Like, it's not worth it.
Right.
Yeah, find out what really matters and work on that. Because I'll bet in the 3 to 4 hours of work that you actually probably get more done because it's focused and intentional, and you've gotten your body involved in it, and your mind,
your brain is,
and your spirit. And so you're going to be probably, if you had to measure production or measure creativity, you're probably leaps and bounds beyond.
Yeah, I think the sustainability is, I mean, it's a perfect word, because I do think, you know, we will all grind when we have to for a period, but there is a cost to it, and there is an end that is usually met where you just can't do it anymore, whether physically you can't do it, mentally you can't do it. The love, I certainly resonated when you said I didn't like who I was in that corporate environment. Very much resonate. And so that will eventually, you know, if you're grinding in a culture that you just don't like yourself in, it doesn't feel authentic or resonate, it's not going to last. It will not last. I'm really curious, and Holly, I know you could probably speak about this too, but I'm curious if you could share with our listeners a bit about that transition from the corporate environment, that grind, masculine way of living and working, to your savings and walking out and taking that break? What were the big learning lessons about that shift for yourself? How hard was it? I guess is the question.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd love to talk about how hard was it, but and also something like that, but some beautiful things that came with hindsight. So how hard was it? In the end, not so hard, because I had already, I had this. I was like, okay, this was it's happening. I had already set up a company with my friends, so that was helping. We were already like, is it called moonlighting, where you just
you were excited,
you had something else that was passionate about. Okay,
exactly. And we were working at the same company at the time, and he had already left, so I'm like, okay. So it was awesome. So that was super helpful.
Sounds familiar.
I had coaching at the time, so that helped me with my confidence. So that was the next step. Yeah. And then it was the saving money. And I really I remember I waited for the bonus, the annual bonus, to be paid and be in my account. And literally the next day, we just had gone to a company trip to Copenhagen. And we got back, and literally that day, and I'm like, okay, this is it, fine. Like I can't, I need to go. So it was it took a while to set it all up, but I think in the end, once I made the decision, okay, like almost that's the day when I get the money in the account, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. It was easy. Yeah. So the leaving was easy, but what followed was actually quite difficult because I hadn't prepared for this life. As I said, I saved some money, but I never had, and that's the hindsight bit, that I only years later in coaching found kind of appreciated, was I never had the decompression period. I never had this like, that was my life. Never grieved the part of me that was dying, and I went straight into a new life with no structure, with no real income, because we were just literally spending money on the company, we were not making anything. And I was literally I did not have a minute. I think I had a week to myself, and I went straight into this new life. So that decompression period came 3 years later, 3.5 years later. Right. So.
And was that hard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I was, and that was at the time when I thought about the cabin, because I really thought, well, what did I do in the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they were important. These years were important, and there were a period of trial and error, and it was obviously me also leaving and totally a life behind, not just work that I had left in 17, but in 19 I then left the life I'd built. And then came this period of real like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my work? Where do I want to go? And the cabin for me has been really, it's been like and this was what I mean with creative expression. It's like, I've birthed something into this world that first and foremost helped me.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing that it helps other people too, but it's really
That's
been my own therapy. And
It's funny because like one of the questions I fear the most, like if you're on an airplane or something, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, because so much of your identity, and I never felt like my identity was.
You never told anybody what you did.
I never told anybody what I did. Like my kids went through school and they were like, I don't know, they were in their teens. They were like, I still don't know what you do. And I said, you're so fortunate. I give advice for good money and you get it for free. So just be fortunate. Like, I turned the dials on them, but now it's like, okay, don't ask me because I don't know. Okay. And can I say I'm a podcaster? Do I say I'm a CEO of our company,
Right.
co-CEO?
Yeah.
I don't know. You get wrapped up in that identity, and then that's the first. I never liked the fact that would be the first thing that people ask.
It's true.
And meeting new people. Obviously, when you have children, every class you have with your children, you meet the parents. Okay, and that's the first thing they would ask. I would avoid it like the plague.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew what I did for years and years and years. In fact, it was a big mystery. And I was, the CFO and
Right.
EVP. And
So it's easy not to answer the question when you feel like you are in a position that people would be excited about or would think is important and
Right.
powerful in that masculine structure.
Right. Yeah,
But then when you don't have that, then it makes it difficult to
I was like,
get
okay,
the
don't
question.
ask me.
Interesting.
And I would laugh at, I'm comfortable with saying, I don't know. I don't, I'd make something up. Okay. But so don't ask me
that
people
is interesting.
on an airplane. I'm not going to tell you.
It's just part of it. It's part of the, corporate America, and that masculine structure is part of our overall life structure. It's embedded in so much of the way the world is structured. So that makes sense, actually.
So who can come to the cabin?
Yes.
Do I have to have work? Because obviously I have no idea.
How do we get a room at the cabin?
A virtual room.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us, tell our listeners, who comes, and who's welcome to come. How do we come show up, and what do we expect to get at the end?
Yeah, good questions. So who can come? It's really just people like you and me. It's anyone who's, I guess, lacking some structure in their day, like they're not being told by their employer what to do, but this is mainly people running their own businesses, freelancers, creatives, and then I think you have to have an appreciation to enjoy it, to enjoy the full experience. I think you have to have an appreciation of what it. I'll say you have to have an open mind. Doesn't mean you need to be you need to practice meditation for 1 or 2 hours a day, but you have to have an open mind for this world. And then it's now across different time zones. Like I've had a lot of people come from the US. I actually now also have someone from Perth in Australia come along. So that's really wonderful to really and that's the beauty of an online space where you can have so many people from different places in the world. And you come along with a piece of work that you might be procrastinating on, but especially on a Monday, I mostly use the sessions to organize my week and to look at my week to say, okay, what are the things I really want to do, but what are also the times when I need space for myself, and rather than jumping into the week and just going with the first thing that comes at me, but really intentionally saying, okay, how do I want my week to be? How do I want to feel? What are the most important things for me? People use it for, a lot of people use the artist's way, so they use it for writing, and lots of, so as I said, lots of self-employed people who are writing their content. It's a wonderful place to write content in, because the meditation really helps to tap into a creative space, and so that's happening. And it's 52 minutes. I know it's a bit of an odd number, but we are, once we've moved a little bit, had the visualization meditation, set some intentions, we then have a 52-minute working session where everyone leaves their screens on and we work alongside each other.
I love that.
And then after we go and reflect on our session in little breakout rooms, so you also get an opportunity to meet the other people that you're working with. It's a bit of a new addition. We used to just share in the space, but sometimes it's like some people are more comfortable with this than others, and so you don't really everyone doesn't get the chance to speak, and so the breakout rooms seem to work really well. People love them.
I love that.
That's it really, and what you can get from it, it's just, I think when you first try it, never done anything like this before, you just be amazed how much you can do in an hour or 52 minutes.
It's 52 minutes.
I love that.
That's the magic.
Well, and I think that, in so many ways, there are many, many, many more people today, obviously working remotely than, so even if you're in a corporate structure and you're seeking a little bit more balance in the way you work and you don't get it through the corporate environment,
this would be the way to do it.
You could absolutely integrate this into the way you're working. I love that.
Can I come every day? Do you host these every day? Obviously, we've got you today, so no.
Yeah.
Well, this is the evening for you. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So the intention is, I mean, the cabin club, for example, is something super new. It's actually only I've launched it yesterday only.
Oh.
Love it.
But it's only starting in November, and the intention behind it is that I can create, again, a sustainable system where I bring on other hosts and facilitators who can then offer it across different time zones. So it's like, for me, for the American time zones, it just doesn't work so well. I can only offer like early morning sessions, or early-ish morning sessions. But wouldn't it be nice to have something at like my midnight, which is like sort of your late afternoon? And this is really the cabin club, is that I'm offering it up to, like, it has 3 sessions to start with in the week, but I really want to work with other facilitators. And what I mean by sustainable as well is like not just sustainable work, but I want to have, I want to pay people. And and it's, especially when you start out, it's wonderful to be able to just come in, facilitate something like this, get your own work done. I think that's really crucial, because I'm always doing my work as well. And facilitate that. I mean, this is the big vision for it, that maybe in a year, 2 years time, we're running every single day, a few sessions a day. That would be wonderful. But for now, it's just me running 3 sessions a week.
So 3 sessions? Okay.
I love that. Never say just me. It's exciting.
No,
it's you.
So good. It's so
but the
good.
time zone thing is a real thing, people.
Yeah. No,
I understand that.
Yes.
Now we learned this because of the podcast.
We did, because we're not morning girls,
No.
and we have a lot of people a lot of international guests, and so we're always having to get up.
I always have said, like, you get me before 11 a.m., I apologize.
We try
it just doesn't flow.
We try to do your morning and our like midnight. Okay, so we've done that before.
For sure, yeah.
Yes.
We're like, oh, we're so much better at
We're
night.
so much better at night.
But
So,
at the cabin, we'd be good.
Of course.
We'd be great at the
Of
cabin.
course.
Well, I love this. This is
Yeah, I
beautiful,
love it.
and I can absolutely see this expanding through all time zones with your facilitating partners that you would be able to selectively employ. So
yeah, I mean, and Holly and I have talked so much about, and I feel like we did when we worked together, try and adapt and change the way corporate works.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard machine to shift. But I think incrementally finding ways to really highlight and because I think corporate America is not getting what they should be getting because of the way they're approaching the work, and the people are not machines, so treat them as humans. And I think
you'll be more profitable and
absolutely
more productive. That's what I say.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I love this, and I think by introducing the cabin and finding other ways, other platforms that do that, I think it will really enlighten workers. And I think workers can start to say, we don't want to do it like this anymore, and we want to do it like that. And that is going to get you're going to yield a better product from me. And so anyway, I absolutely love the concept, and I'm so excited that you birthed that from all of your own personal learning, and brought it for others. So it's fantastic.
Love it. Well, Daniela, we love that you're in the world. We love what you're doing.
Thank you.
We are so thankful for your generosity to be here today. And, you know, I see us, you know, corralling ourselves and doing it when we try to launch our book.
100%. 100%. We would totally.
Wow.
We would be good
We
at
call
that.
it a pamphlet because book sounds scary.
Yeah. Take the fear out.
Yeah.
Fear is just not good.
Just be a little pamphlet. Yeah. A little
And I
flyer.
don't think there's any fear at the cabin.
No. And I never
Well,
really thought of us as
there-
cabin people, but, you know, I am
There
now.
might be some fear. You know,
There might
that
be.
could be one of the distractions. I think we often look at distractions just externally, like the phone, whatever. But I think the internal distractions is a real thing. But rather than again pushing it away, we always address it. If someone, you know, feels fear arising, which is so normal when you do something that's difficult, or you know something you've never done before, just be with it. And again, the cabin offers space for that.
Love that. That's that mindfulness. Wonderful stuff coming
Yeah,
out.
I love it. Fantastic.
Okay.
And yeah,
Well,
it's
it's
a perfect place to write a book in. Right?
It
Yes.
is. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, we will link everything. Well, tell us where your website is, but we'll have that all in the show notes for people.
Yes. And I'm going to, because I think I know exactly, it was a documentary on the Social Network. I'm going to find that and link it because I think it's really important for people to watch.
Yeah.
Makes us
Yeah,
all
no,
think
it's-
about the time we're spending. I mean, the time is like the commodity. It's the most important commodity. And so making sure we're spending our time on the right things.
Yeah. No, please do. I think it is. It's an eye opener for sure.
Yeah. We'll make it the homework assignment.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it was a real
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you.
Bye,
All right,
everyone.
bye, everyone.